everybody, it's Mike with On Point Preparedness. It has been over 2 weeks since I last touched base with you. I think my last video was on the 6th, right when the cray-cray was starting to unfold. And I said I was going to do an update, but honestly, I was really convicted by the Spirit that there was too much going on. I think anyone that's sort of been paying attention to the world scene, and you're on the internet a whole lot, everyone was bombarded with massive amounts of intel saying, this act has been signed, Trump's here, Trump's there, this is happening, it's all going down, prepare. It was absolutely nuts. And so really I was just convicted by the Spirit to say, you know what? Be quiet. Wait until after the 20th and let's just see what the heck happens before you say anything. And so that's what I've done. So apologies to anyone that's wondered where I've been. I put out some notes on Facebook and on the YouTube posts, but a lot of people don't see those. So that's basically what I've been doing, is just being patient and seeing where everything is sort of playing out. Now that I've had the time to really look at everything, this is going to be an incredibly important broadcast, especially at the end. I'm going to go over a little table of contents of everything that I'm going to cover. And because I've been off for 2 weeks, I've got a lot. I've got a lot of stuff to share with you. And I think this is going to be one of those times where this is going to be probably a full hour, maybe go a little bit over that. Just for some housekeeping things, I know some people really like the shorter videos. So I do just want to show you this tip really quickly. Any of you that are on YouTube, if I go ahead and share my screen here. If you're on YouTube and you're watching my videos, and I don't speak incredibly fast, but if you go to the little gear icon on the video and you go to settings, there's an option called playback speed. And with how many videos people send me, I watch everything at 2 times speed. So you can do 1 1/4, 1 1/2, 1 3/4, 2 speed. So again, this is a very, very important broadcast, especially the end, as it relates to what's going on with Trump and just things that I see as sign of the times. If it's a little bit too long with you, please use this option so that you can hear everything that needs to be said. So, going to the table of contents on everything that I'm going to be discussing here, in case you want to skip through and just go to the part of interest. There is a little bit of censorship of my channel. So I do have a new channel on Rumble. The link is in the YouTube description box below. If you have a Rumble account, please go ahead and subscribe. If not, just go ahead and bookmark that page. We know that there's all sorts of Twitter purges, and there's purges all over social media. It's happening to a bunch of my friends. This is not distinctly Christian persecution. This is conservative persecution. Don't get those two things confused. Christians are generally conservative, but not all conservatives are Christian. But because I look at signs of the times with regards to what's happening in politics, I've gotten a warning just for speaking out against the alphabet people, the whole Q thing. Just in speaking out about that, I think YouTube is flagging me just because of transcripts and language. So there is a chance that I would get even more heavily censored in the coming days. So that is where I'll be posting most of the signs of the times that have to deal with like politics and what's going on in the world scene. So censorship, just going to talk about that real quick. I'm going to talk about all the crazy delusion that happened over the past 2 weeks. I've been warning about when things go viral, watch out. I'm going to show you some of the worst things that happened this past 2 weeks. I'm also going to talk about all the strange things that happened the past 2 weeks. Legitimate, true things that happened that just don't add up at all. We're going to also talk about one very joyful thing about Trump leaving. I know a lot of people, that's not going to sound good, but there is something very joyful that came out of that, and I'm going to back it up with scripture. And then again, the most important part of this broadcast is going to be about the continued and exceedingly great dangers of delusion around Trump. In particular, and this is going to be some new information that I'm presenting for you guys. What do New Agers, Jewish rabbis, and NAR Christian patriots have in common? Okay, this is all in relation to Trump. Some of the stuff that I'm going to share is it knocked my socks off. you're going to find it fairly interesting as well. So hope you stick with me. All right, so already went through the whole purge. We see this happening, I know, on Twitter. Tens of thousands, maybe even hundreds of thousands of accounts just of regular users have been purged, as well as, some of the big channels, they've been purged as well. It's not a Christian purge, although it's sort of close. So again, don't get those two things confused. And again, because I do ministry teachings on here and because we talk about the gospel on here, to protect that, because that stuff is not going to get purged right now. To protect that, I will have to be moving all these types of conversations about the world scene over to that channel. So this one, I'm going to try to be careful with my words, but I just have to share some of these things with you. So I would appreciate if you pray with me that this particular video is protected. All right. Now, talking about what I call the Great Awakening data dump. All the things that people were inundated with over the last 2 weeks. Okay. A lot of it was from the alphabet community. That's just code for this. NAR and New Agers. And there was so much of it, and it got passed down from person to person to person, that you didn't even really know what the original source was in some cases. But it just exploded. And just like I've covered in all the other videos in the past, when things go exceedingly viral, you have to be so careful about the source. And one perfect example here, and I'm not even going to say his name because he's getting taken off of YouTube, which I think is a good thing. Simon P. This guy is explicitly New Age. And his video, it was phenomenal. His videos were racking up millions. Like within 3 hours, it got 800,000 views, and after that, I mean, it was in the millions. Every single video, he was dropping all sorts of intel because he served in British government, and his family members are in MI5, MI6, secret services in Great Britain or whatnot. So he's using that as a pedestal. Again, one of the things I've said is God chose the foolish to shame the wise. Yet what we see happening is everyone is running to the people that are supposedly wise for information. Former government officials, doctors, people in high places, celebrity figure. Everyone's running to the wise. And this guy presents himself as wise, and he started dropping all this intel. And people don't really realize how much of a New Ager he is. So in particular, and this isn't an article that is just trying to cover up truth, like an MSM article sort of like tamping him down. This article here was in 2013, so 7 years ago. He self-admittedly says that he has fathered a child with an alien. And so he talks about the Galactic Federation, if you will, or his experience with aliens, and he's all about consciousness and New Age principles. So this guy's, he talks about this openly, that people think he's crazy, but he stands by his experiences. As Christians, we know he's not necessarily crazy, that he legitimately had encounters, but this is all demonic forces. I mean, this is the New Age demonic forces. And so if you actually look at his website now, because he's been pushed off of YouTube, it's all about collective consciousness and all New Age things. So again, this is only one of a multitude of examples over the last 2 weeks where everything was going viral, everyone was getting inundated, and the vast majority of it was from NAR, New Agers, the alphabet community, so on and so forth. So this type of atmosphere, if you will, is not going to go away. And so we have to be so careful with who we listen to, especially just the viral ones. When things go exceedingly viral, you just got to say, okay, let me just see what this person's about. All right. Now, moving on to the things that I believe are truthful in that they happened, that are strange. I've compiled a whole bunch of things. And the reason I'm doing this is not just for politics' sake. Again, this video is really still centered all around Trump and the delusion that he carries. And so everything that I show to you in this section is really going to be about all the strange oddities surrounding the last 2 weeks. And what does this really mean in terms of Trump? Is he gone? Did he serve his purpose? Was there any purpose at all? Some people say the whole thing was a psyop. I'm actually going to get into all the major theories that I've seen on the internet regarding what people think prophetically is happening. Signs of the times. There's probably like eight major theories that I've been seeing, and so I want to go through each one of those and give you my opinion on why or why not. But all of these articles in this section are going to sort of support a narrative here. So, very strange things that happened in the last 2 weeks. This isn't fully verified, but you'll find that there are these pictures of affidavits from this individual. I can't even say his name on YouTube because, again, all those videos are taken down. He was the former head of an Italian defense company of the 8th largest global defense contractor, this right here, Leonardo. And this affidavit basically says that at the highest levels in Italian government, there was conspiracy regarding this particular topic here. What's interesting is right around the time of the 20th, there's these articles here saying that the Italian government is in collapse. It's on the verge of collapse as the Renzi party withdraws from government. So again, just a strange thing to consider. Some other strange things is if you look on Google, the Dutch government, Estonia government, and many other governments started falling into collapse. Now, I noticed that these are all for a variety of different reasons, so they may or may not be related. But again, this was part of the swirl that happened over the last 2 weeks. People are like, well, what's going on? Why are all these articles popping up of government collapses? Okay, so it's just strange, but we really don't know if there's a true link. Other strange things. The Department of National Intelligence, Ratcliffe, confirms that there is China interference regarding this topic and that the CIA suppressed it. So this on the Gateway Pundit that releases a report on January 17th talking about the interference and the management pressuring analysts to not report it. So pretty breaking things. Again, as this was on the 17th, people were really wondering what's going to happen on the 20th. It was really starting to create a whole bunch of swirl. But again, strange having this last minute breaking things. Continuing on, Trump loyalist Chris Miller, who was the acting defense secretary, and this one's really strange. He instates Michael Ellis as a new NSA general counsel lawyer 3 days before the new administration. And then check this out. Even Pelosi wrote a letter saying that this is extremely suspect and uncalled for, being that this is right around the transition to a new administration. So here's this article from CNN saying Pelosi demands that he halt this order to install this person as general counsel. Particularly, just reading this verbatim, she demanded that he immediately cease his plans. It's highly suspect and argues that it represents a disturbing regard for the country's national security. I ask you immediately to cease this. And she actually was calling on a probe into why this happened 3 days before a new administration. The circumstances and timing immediately after the president's defeat in the election and the selection of this person in this 11th hour in the last 3 days of the administration are highly suspect. I mean, it is highly suspect. Very strange things were happening right up to the day. Further, these efforts to install him or burrow him into highly sensitive intelligence positions 72 hours prior to the beginning of a new administration manifest a disturbing disregard for national security. Okay, so again, very, very strange. Moving on. Along with her concern about the addition of this NSA lawyer, we also know, right, that she immediately went into this demand for the 25th Amendment. She also acted outside of her role to contact the Joint Chiefs of Staff to revoke Trump's military command. You see this article here saying that he's unstable. and went totally beyond her role in terms of the Constitution. It's almost, some people are saying this is, I don't even want to say the word, starts with a C. But again, very strange. People wondered, why is she so threatened regarding Trump and that she's pursuing all these things. I don't want you guys going down a rabbit hole with this, but people in other countries who aren't nearly as censored have apparently, and I don't know if these are fake photographs or not, but they're circulating in other countries. Some contents of Hunter's computer regarding the PED stuff are starting to leak out. Apparently, allegedly, right? We don't fully know. And Nancy Pelosi's son seems to be implicated. Again, they could be fake photos. I can't. It's all alleged conspiracy at this point. But her actions are quite interesting. They are strange. All right, going on. Other things, right up to the 20th, we started seeing the FBI probing National Guard members, which is fairly insulting, considering that they are pretty much vetted, in their position when they join the military. There was a couple National Guardsmen that I saw on Twitter that said, "Oh, I'm probably gonna get in trouble for doing this, but whatever." They were saying that they were being questioned by the FBI in terms of whether they were Republican or Democrat and who they voted for. And actually, some of the detail that was closest to Biden, they were actually making sure that those guardsmen or those Capitol Police, those were Biden supporters. So you wonder, what was going on? I mean, what was going on behind the scenes where they felt threatened? I mean, I think even Andrew Cuomo said that he didn't want to go to the Capitol, even though there was like 25,000 troops there, and maybe however many tens of thousands of Capitol Police and other agencies there. He said it was a security threat that he didn't want to go down there. Very strange things, needless to say. Talking about the military and staying on this whole topic, just want to remind people, this was, I think, back in December. Again, one of the oddities is that the Pentagon halted transition briefings with Biden. Okay, very strange. The Biden team responded back to that, saying that this is absolutely uncalled for. Again, just a very strange thing. And then the other thing, which happened on the 6th, was that the Pentagon denied multiple requests to send the National Guard during the whole Capitol incident. So again, that's where this whole swirl started picking up. And again, this was really amped up by the whole alphabet community, the NAR, and lots of New Agers and everything, that there was going to be this huge military operation and everything was going to get taken down and whatever. And you can see why the swirl was there. It was a lie, but there's a whole bunch of like truthful, strange things which sort of propagated that to be a possibility. I mean, a lot of people were wondering, just because this is all very strange. Just digressing just slightly, the military and, as a whole, are they more loyal to Trump, or are they more loyal to the existing or current administration? The articles just keep flooding in. Right now it's showing all these National Guardsmen that got kicked out of the Capitol and now they're sleeping in an outside cold garage. So again, it's sort of building this narrative of the current administration hates the military and treats them poorly, and we wish Trump was back. So this whole military thing is still being a prevalent theme even today. This one is well, it's not new. This was on the 19th. It was new to me, though. But another strange oddity. This is from TMZ. Typically, the incoming president is allowed to have a government aircraft to fly into D.C. for the inauguration. I don't know who denied Biden a military government airlift, but he was apparently denied. Maybe from the same Chris Miller, acting defense secretary, who's, potentially also negated calls for the National Guard and also halted transition briefings. But he was denied a government aircraft, so that's also interesting. Other things, nationwide blackout in Pakistan. There was also a whole bunch of false news about the Vatican being blacked out and Italy being blacked out. There was blackouts supposedly happening everywhere, but I'm pretty sure the only big one that happened was in Pakistan. And this was major. Like, it was nearly the entire country, which is not normal at all. The one thing that I wanted to say about this is the whole alphabet community was talking about blackouts. Back in the summer, I didn't even know that the whole alphabet community was talking about blackouts. I don't think back then, but I did a video warning about blackouts in June. There's actually this German guy, Klaus or something. You may have seen his videos, and I think they came out this past fall. But even the people, the NWO, the deep state things, and the Great Reset, they're talking about the risk of a cyber attack and a global type of blackout via this cyber attack, and how it's going to make COVID be completely, minuscule compared to what's going to happen. Sort of like Event 201, right? There was an Event 201 that they were practicing and warned about, and then COVID came. Are they sort of showing their plans? So it's sort of weird. You're having this whole blackout thing come from both sides. The Great Awakening people are talking about a blackout, and the Great Reset people are talking about a blackout. Some people believe that's why this is a psyop, that, both sides are, two sides of the same coin talking about the same thing. Hegelian dialectic, if you will. But, us as Christians just sort of wedged in the middle of all this, I think we just need to be aware. It's coming from both sides, and it doesn't seem rhetorical, because things like this are sort of adding to this narrative that something like this might happen, and we just probably won't even know the narrative for why it's happening. Which side caused it? Absolutely no idea. But again, I just wanted to detail it here that it's just strange, and I don't know if it were to happen whether it means the reset is starting to come sooner, or then we have this great rebellion, great awakening thing. So just wanted to mention that. All right. This also, Trump starts to use the alphabet community jargon and phrases. I called out this alphabet movement way back several months ago as being a cult. And then I sort of just forgot about it, because I just thought the theories were absolutely crazy. But where I started observing them, just for intel, not intel per se, but just to I watch all these people. I watch the New Agers. I watch the NARs. I watch this alphabet community just to understand the spiritual delusion. And what really caught my attention, and what I've shared on my channel for quite a while, is I started getting really concerned when you saw high-profile people like Flynn, Powell, and Wood all start to use the hashtags from the alphabet community. Even Trump Jr. was posting on some of his social media sites, enjoy the show, the best is yet to come, all this stuff. And so here, this is what they're referring to. And you wonder if they're just, again, lots of people saying this whole alphabet thing was a psyop. We're going to cover that towards the end of this video. It was definitely a spiritual delusion, but from a secular point of view, was it a psyop? This was back on October 17, 2020, and you can see here, Panic in DC, the best is yet to come, signature this letter. And then how did Trump talk about, or what did he say in his farewell address? He said, the best is yet to come. He said that actually in multiple different speeches. Strange. Because many times, just because of how prevalent the alphabet movement is, it's global. I mean, make no mistake, this thing is huge. It's global. It's very strange where he denies it. People are asking him in press conferences, do you rebuke these people? Do you have anything to do with them? And he's like, well, I think they're, if their movement is going against this and that and whatever, what's bad about that? And so here he is. He's starting to actually reiterate some of these drops. So that's what's giving the whole alphabet community, and even NARs and all sorts of people, that's what's given them a lot of hope. Now, this is the last thing about the strange occurrences, and then I want to start shifting into some of the other topics. And again, at the very end of this broadcast, the most important stuff is at the end that I have to share with you. I've started to notice really strange things in Trump's tweets. A good word for it is very cryptic things in his tweets and his statements. And I'm just going to show you two of them. There's actually more than this. But in his farewell address, one of the things he emphasized, the two things I got from it is he was ending with this signature, "The best is yet to come," which is part of the alphabet community. And the other thing I picked up, which is very strange, is he says, "This week, we inaugurate a new administration and pray for its success in keeping America safe and prosperous," the Republican president said in recorded marks. And this is the sentence that I thought was strange. "We extend our best wishes, and we also want them to have luck." And then he said a very important word. He stressed that. Luck. A very important word. And what came to my mind was he's always stressed that word luck with regards to other people under strange circumstances. So here's one of them. A while back, I showed you the controversy with Prince Andrew and Mr. Jeffrey E. That there was tons of people chanting outside Birmingham Palace saying, "Hey, P, leave our kids alone." There was like a whole protest out there against, this whole Save the Children thing. And so Prince Harry and the whole royal family, you can see what he said here. "Whatever he has or hasn't done is completely separate from me and my wife." The whole family tried to distance themselves from this. You wonder whether family secrets were kept secret and who knew or who participated. Anyways, when Prince Harry started making political jabs at Trump, we also saw Trump start to talk about this luck very, very strongly and under sort of strange circumstances. Trump went, this was back in September 2020. Trump wishes Prince Harry, quote unquote, luck with Meghan after the election. He's like, "I'm not a fan of hers, but I wish a lot of luck to Harry. He's gonna need it," Trump said at a White House briefing. Some people may say I'm looking into that a little bit much, but let me just show you one example. Trump has also done this with regards to, they're almost cryptic type of words, where whenever he talked about the virus and the pandemic, the way in which the context was, it didn't seem like he was actually talking about the actual biological virus, that he was talking about China and the deep state and that being the virus. Again, very, very type of cryptic things. Here's another one. We know that his brainchild, his new segment of the military, Space Force, they recently in December called them Guardians. And so, again, in a tweet here back, January 4th, 2021, when the Republicans went against him, he said the Surrender Caucus within the Republican Party will go down in infamy as weak and ineffective guardians of our nation. So again, he takes certain words and some of the times he'll quote them, put them in quotes, and he'll use them in very different circumstances. The way I'm reading into this is this whole Space Force thing, I don't think we've heard the last of it. Again, this is sort of like his isolated brainchild away from the whole quote-unquote deep state. He, hand-selected people, sort of isolated from everyone else, and he calls them, his guardians. And says basically anyone that wasn't on his side are weak and ineffective guardians. And so you really wonder if something happens in the future, what role this plays. Some of the other swirl that happened over the last 2 weeks, and I don't know if this is true or not, but some people, like I was watching Coriana Jones, a channel that I had referred to, he's out of South Korea. He was saying that there's people saying that Space Force has satellites which have communication abilities to reach like worldwide audiences. I don't know. That could be totally false. But again, that's some of the swirl that just was floating around the internet the last 2 weeks. All right. So now that you sort of understand all the strange things, and that's going to build into a lot of the topics that we talk after this one. I really want to bring us back to Scripture for something very important. Obviously, all the people that are in the extremes, like the NARs, the alphabet people, the really strong patriots, things like that, they're losing their minds in more ways than one. But I'll tell you what, I don't have a horse in this race. I really don't care about politics. I see that both sides are evil, and it's, again, a clash of two evils, as I've said in my last videos. But again, I am conservative. I think a lot of Christians morally are conservative. And so there is a part where, the rhetoric from the left is so bad. It's so bad that you really want them to get what's due. I mean, I really want them to get what's due. And so a little piece of me is like, oh yeah, I wish Trump could really stick it to him. I think a lot of people have that, right? But again, we have to not yield to the flesh. We have to be so careful of that. But regarding this, good, joyful things actually came out of nothing happening. Okay, so for one, if this grand thing happened at the very last moment, this miracle, it would have hit the fan immediately. There is definitely things that are out there that can still be exposed. And if it were exposed, it immediately would have hit the fan. And I think we'd be having a lot different conversation. And it wouldn't be rejoiceful. I think that there'd be a ton of scary stuff happening. Now, with Biden taking, it's more of this semi-slow, still a little bit of fast-paced, just grind. We're like grinding through each day of news, but it just didn't immediately hit the fan. So we still live in peace. That's a good thing. Second good thing is this. There were tens of millions of Christians that were praying to God and are still praying to God to be their leader. If you read about in Samuel, so many people were praying to God, or they were telling the prophets that we want a king, an earthly king, just like all the other nations. And they were demanding it so much that God said, just let them have what they want, but know that this king is going to be horrible to you. But it shows that, luckily God didn't give people over in this instance. He actually overrode them. There was a lot of people that said, you're a terrible Christian for not voting. But as we see in Daniel 2:21, it is God that sets up kings. He changes times and seasons. He removes kings and sets up kings. He gives wisdom to the wise and knowledge to those who have understanding. So regardless of everyone's prayers, and regardless of how many people, there was probably extreme numbers of people that went out and voted for Trump. Setting up a king, this is not something where Satan took advantage of God and put in Biden, that God was overridden. That is a really bad thing to say or think. God is totally sovereign, and so he has permitted Biden to sit in office right now over Trump. And so all those people, we're talking about, you need to do your Christian duty and everything to vote. If you want to vote, that's fine. I'm not condemning anyone for voting. But when you start saying that I'm an immoral Christian or something, that I should have voted, that's when I start to have a problem. But again, God completely overrode all of that. And why is that a good thing? Even though I absolutely despise the rhetoric, you guys see on TV, the rhetoric from the left, they're just lapping it on. They're gleeful, they're rubbing it all in the right's face. And again, even though I don't have a horse in this race, it is tempting my flesh. And so we all need to step back. But the very important thing here, the thing that I have been so worried about, was that if this last minute miracle did happen, that all these NAR false prophets and New Agers and all this, and God, just like in Samuel, said, let them have their king. And he actually gives people up to delusion, which is what 2 Thessalonians chapter 2 warns about. That at some point, he's going to give people over to a strong delusion. These people who were hoping and praying, tons and tons of people that are really getting into idolatry of Trump, they would be completely lost. I warned about it. You're not going to get them back. And so with all those false prophets falling on their faces and New Agers and all of them falling on their faces, there are going to be some, not many, as I'll show you. Actually, the Trump idolatry is, in fact, getting a little bit worse. But there are going to be some that are going to be so disenchanted with the false prophecies and everything that maybe they'll come upon videos, from a good Christian community showing how Trump is not a true Christian, and they might be saved. And so this really relates to 2 Peter chapter 3. The Lord is not slow to fulfill his promise, as some count slowness, but is patient towards you, not wishing that anyone should perish, but all should reach repentance. Again, if this last-minute miracle came through, people would be, just as 2 Thessalonians 2, be under an amazingly strong delusion. God would give them over to that, to believe what is false. But he hasn't just yet. And so for a select few, hopefully they can come out of this. For many, though, they're going headwind straight into this even deeper. And you will be absolutely shocked to see what's going on. I mean, this is probably going to be the absolute most important part of this broadcast. You're going to be absolutely shocked to see what is actually happening with regards to people wanting Trump back in office. Okay? And we're going to get to that right now. Really quick, just digressing for a quick second. A lot of people are mad at me, like, you don't talk enough about Biden. Why are you always so hard on Trump? And the reason is there really isn't delusion with Biden. I mean, let's be honest. He's a guy with dementia. He's probably going to leave office and give it to Kamala. There's no delusion with him. The people, who knows who voted for him anyways, just because of the whole fraudulent stuff. Got to be careful with words. For the people that did vote for him, a lot of them probably only voted for him because they hate Trump. Let's be honest. It's that whole lesser of two evil things. I just thought this picture was interesting, talking about Biden's inauguration with all his pretty flags versus Trump. Okay, there's really not delusion around Biden. Okay, this has all been about Trump. Everyone just wanted to get Trump out of office because the people that voted against him just hate him so much. No one has a messiah complex with Biden. Or if there are, I've seen like maybe one magazine that did. It is just incredibly rare. Versus the delusion that's following Trump is what we're going to talk about now in the most important segment of this broadcast. The devil's mimicry of Christ via Trump. This is so important, guys. Please stick with me on this. And then we'll get into opinions of what might happen in the future. Really quick note, though. When Obama was president and he finished his first term, people are like, oh, he's definitely going to be, the Antichrist, or, the end's going to come in his second term. And then it didn't happen. And then Obama left office. And then people kept on dangling a carrot saying, Obama's coming back. Obama's coming back. He's coming back in some capacity or form. He's definitely going to be, so-and-so of Revelation. I'm not going to do that with Trump. Okay? Not going to dangle the carrots to say, oh, yeah, it's definitely. However, in this period that we're in, and when you guys look at everything that I'm about to show you, there's still a lot of spiritual danger here. And this is what I want to warn about. So, starting here, the devil's mimicry of Christ via Trump. I've spoken about it before, that the devil, via Antichrist spirit against Christ, portrays himself as an angel of light and really mimics things of the light, makes things look good in order to draw people into delusion and deception. And I did a video called Mike Pence versus Judas Iscariot, and I want to just recap some of those things, and then I'm going to add to it. And I want you guys to look at sort of what's playing out here, because it's fairly disturbing. But first, this was just today. This is the most recent statements from Trump. This was at 2:39 p.m. today. He's still in Florida, and a Washington Examiner reporter asked him, what are you going to do regarding this Patriot Party that he's supposedly coming up with? He's like, we'll do something, but not just yet. So is Trump dangling the carrot, just keeping people on the edge, or is he being serious? And as we looked at all the strange occurrences over the last 2 weeks, a whole bunch of oddities, you wonder. No one really knows, but you wonder. So looking purely at the secular evidence that we just looked at, it doesn't seem likely. Okay? He, as a sitting president, which has a lot of power, went against all the forces of the quote-unquote deep state. He went through all the courts, all the way up to the Supreme Court. There was massive amounts of good evidence. I mean, I looked through a lot of the data analytics and things. I mean, there's actually still in Arizona, there's criminal subpoenas and things going on right now to look into this. He had so much, but even so, again, the deep state, with all of their power, completely took him down. Okay? If he creates this new quote-unquote Patriot Party, what difference does it make, honestly? I mean, honestly, you're now a citizen. You're no longer a sitting president. You don't have a lot of access to intelligence, all these things. From a secular point of view, it looks like, although he had tons of momentum, he doesn't have it anymore. So this whole thing about a Patriot Party, it doesn't make sense. Okay? The other thing that's sort of strange is I said, there's massive momentum around this, and based on his personality, you really don't see him just saying, I concede. He actually never did say he conceded, but you just didn't really see him backing down. But what he did was he just sort of left. We're going to cover that in this segment, and I want to show you some weird things he's said throughout his lifetime. But so from a secular point of view, and looking at the, I'm going to call it supposed failure. Again, it seems like a failure. Him going against all these things. Him now being a citizen, and again, they're trying to impeach him, that's going to start on February 8th, those trial proceedings. Doesn't seem like he has a chance. Really doesn't. But what I want to focus on always is the potential for spiritual powers and principalities. Because we don't wrestle against flesh and blood. We know that this is a spiritual war. We know that this whole thing with the pandemic and the global lockdowns and everything that's happening right now versus the global, or the Great Reset versus the Great Awakening, we are in the times. We are in the times, and spiritually stuff is going on that I don't think we have full visibility to. And so that's why I want to share with you all of these things about the spiritual mimicry of Christ via Trump. So I have never seen a single man draw so much worldwide delusion onto himself. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, I'm sorry, I'm not going to recap all the 9 months of videos that I've done. But for those of you that have seen some of those, the whole alphabet thing, people in all other countries, supporting him, waving American flags and all this stuff, really wanting him to take down the deep state. So many people just sort of were enamored with him and his position against taking everything down. From people that are cardinals and bishops in the Vatican to lay people from different countries. In all of these riots against the lockdowns and things like that, you're also seeing Trump flags and all these other supporters come up. It's all sort of tied together. I've just never seen someone carry that much momentum and delusion as a single person. So spiritually, I think we should focus on what he's doing. And for the people that, are saying he's a good Christian and they don't idolize him at all. I mean, when I show you some of the stuff, not everyone idolizes him. A lot of people just like conservative values and they just don't like the deep state and they want him to get rid of them. But again, a lot of people, they give lip service to Christ, but Christ is really just a proxy for them loving Trump. And it's gotten way worse after the inauguration than it was before. And I've got tons of screenshots. So going back to this video that I did, Mike Pence versus Judas Iscariot. And I see that we're at 45 minutes, so this is definitely going to go over an hour. But this is so important. This is the most important part of the broadcast. I covered about the mimicry and the similarities that people were drawing between Trump and Christ just a little bit in this 17-minute video. I'm going to expound upon that now, and I want to show you what Jewish rabbis are saying about Trump, and what the New Agers are saying about Trump, and also what, alphabet people, and it's all sort of converging. They're all saying sort of the same thing, but from many different angles. And probably the most interesting is what the Jewish rabbis are saying about him. So, about Trump, sort of via an antichrist spirit, mimicking this walk of Christ. This is from, now I don't condone this book, or I don't know this individual, because I haven't read it. Someone just gave me this small little snippet, Rise of the Little Horn. I'm not saying Trump is the little horn. I'm not sure. He's definitely not the Antichrist. I've never said that before. I don't really think so. But this is interesting about his genealogy. Jesus' mother's name is Mary. Trump's mother's name is Mary. Jesus has an aunt, although there's many aunts and uncles, but he has an aunt's name that's Elizabeth. Trump's aunt's name is Elizabeth, and we know that Jesus' aunt's name is Elizabeth. Although he has many cousins, Trump has a cousin named John. Jesus' cousin is named John. But even more strange than that, the name Christ is very common in Trump's family tree, as is the name Trump. Trump's grandmother's maiden name was Elizabeth Christ. His father's middle name is Christ. And there's even this mysterious figure in Trump's genealogy called Christ. And so here you can see the matriarch of the family, Elizabeth Christ Trump. Okay, so that's strange. Let's go on. As I've covered before, Trump, via his own admission through a retweet, compares himself to the second coming of God. This Wayne Allen Root, he thanks him for the very nice words. President Trump is the greatest president for the Jews and for Israel in the history of the world, not just America, but best president for Israel in the history of the world, and the Jewish people in Israel love him like he's the king of Israel. They love him like he is the second coming of God. Okay, so that's really bad. That's, if you're a Christian and you think Trump is this wonderful Christian man, he just acknowledged or gave favor to someone calling him the second coming of God. That is a high level of blasphemy. Okay, but again, not only does he have this weird family genealogy, he's also saying that he is, or he likes to be known as, the second coming of God. What I also covered in that last broadcast was very strange parallels that seem to be happening between, again, Trump and Christ. So Trump rebukes the Republicans and the Democrats, and both go after him. And I mentioned that this is similar to Jesus rebuking the left and right Pharisees and Sadducees. They were political parties, religious political parties. Both wanted to take him out. Adding to what I mentioned in that last video, Trump supporters entered into the Capitol, and yes, Antifa was there too, so we're not going to get into that debate. But there were tons of people chanting, "Our house, our house, our house." And I started noticing many articles where they're actually making what happened to the Capitol, Trump's followers sort of going into the Capitol saying it's our house, it's our place, and sort of running out the money changers. This is similar to Jesus flipping tables as the religious people had defiled the temple. Speaking of the word temple, this was said multiple times during the inauguration. It was said multiple times after the 6th, and it's still being said today. Senator Durbin on the Senate floor, this sacred place was desecrated. Sacred being holy, like religious holy. Another article, the Capitol riot and sacred temples. They're calling it a sacred temple. The Capitol is a sacred temple. When I covered, the roots of America and how they're not really Christian, and how a lot of the monuments, the Washington Monument, the Lincoln Monument, they're all literally pagan temples. And here you see the language coming up again, that the Capitol is literally to them seen as a sacred temple in which these money changers were defiling, and people ran in saying, our house, we're going to reclaim our house. Here's a Jewish source from the times of Israel. This is actually coming from a different aspect. This is from the left side, but still, whether right or left, they're all sort of referring it to the temple. And the raiders entered and defiled it, the temple and the Capitol. So again, the Jews are drawing a comparison between the temple and, you know, the Capitol building. It's really, really strange. But it even this whole parallelism even goes further. Trump gets betrayed by someone that was very close to him, Mike Pence. Jesus gets betrayed by Judas Iscariot. I was mentioning that, you know, you're probably going to see this run wild. You're probably going to see tons of people start to call him Judas Iscariot, as if Trump was like Christ. Now, you know, calling someone a Judas is common language, so it's maybe not that bad. But this is almost sort of comical, as I'll show you. I did that video, and then maybe like a week or two after, Franklin Graham, who I do not support him at all, he fellowships with Catholics and advocates for Catholics. He's not to be trusted. He went along with this. Franklin Graham blasts Republicans who betrayed Trump, compares them to Judas. So again, we see this Jesus versus Trump parallel again. Complete this with, and I think this is the part that's comical. Complete this parallel with Pence accepting a military challenge coin for doing the deed and Judas accepting 30 pieces of silver. So if you watch after they certified the election, this individual, via a secret handshake, now this isn't anything totally secret. If you look up secret handshakes and military challenge coins, this happens quite frequently when someone is wanting to, you know, basically praise someone else, or you complete a certain challenge. There's a secret handshake where they transfer a coin, and you know, Pence got his figurative 30 pieces of silver, as it were. And these things were not hidden. These were all huge viral articles, and I just had to have just a little bit of a chuckle to myself, just because of the parallelism and the fact that these were all viral things that were happening. Anyways, let's continue. This is weird. Donald Trump says back in the fall of 2020, he says people won't see him for a while. Donald Trump says it may be the last time Americans will see him amid all my enemies out there. Some people might say I'm stretching this. This isn't like the best comparison. But in John 16:16, Jesus says, a little while and you will see me no longer. And again, a little while and you will see me, you know, again. And here Trump is saying, you won't see me for a while. Sort of weird. Continuing on. This was back, I think, in the 80s. This interview of Trump. And what he says is, let's just watch it.
I used to say, and in fact I think I said in my first book that, and maybe this was foolish, but I really meant it, that someday I'd like to maybe lose everything for a period of time to see who's loyal and who's not loyal. And I found out a lot of things.
Did you find out who's loyal and not loyal?
I tell you what, and you can't guess it. You can't predict it. You think certain people would be loyal no matter what, and it turns out that they're not. And you just can't predict it. It's very difficult.
So that was back in the 80s, saying that he sort of wishes he would lose everything just to see who's loyal to him. Him saying that all the way back, you know, again, this is probably the 80s or maybe 90s. Sort of weird. Pair that up with, and I got this covered later on towards my notes here. I did a video saying that Trump has been planning this for 35 years. Back in the 80s, there were articles with him saying that his number one desire is to have Middle East peace. And he was working with some of the I think it might have been Reagan administration, but he was working with certain administrations about how to get Middle East peace 35 years ago. So with all this delusion surrounding Trump and his history, it's just very, very odd. Continuing on. This, just a note, this could totally just be media parroting and antagonizing Christians, just using language to really upset them. I don't want people to think that this is totally like, oh, this is prophetic or whatever. Take it with a grain of salt. Washington Post said on the 10th, as Trump leaves office weakened, Republicans wonder if his wounds are fatal. So sort of a wink and nod to the fatal wound that was healed. Again, there's lots of opinions on Revelation regarding preterism, historicism, or futurism. A lot of people think futurism is a complete deception propagated by Roman Catholics, and so all this talk is just, fanatic. But still, sort of interesting article. Wanted to include that. So, here's the really bad part. Thank you to everyone on the Facebook community who helped me get these pictures. It didn't take long. Probably took only about a half an hour to show you what people and myself have been seeing. With Trump paralleling Christ, I can't say for sure, but if we look at what's happened so far in terms of these weird parallels between him and Christ, and what I will show you, and what's very, very important regarding what the Jewish rabbis are saying, is this his supposed or figurative death and resurrection. Tons of people in the alphabet community, in the NAR, even Patriot Christians, they are going completely into delusion, and they're saying things like this. Regarding Trump going away, they say, remember the cross. Satan thought he had won. Then 3 days later. Oh, that's so bad. This person, I actually saw her years ago, and I never really watched her. But Lauren Atkinson has a video saying that God kept telling her resurrection and to have faith. And this is all about, the election. Again, this idea of resurrection. This is really delusion. Freedom Force Battalion. I showed you this book by Melissa Red Pill the World, Freedom Force Battalion, QAnon and the 1,000 Years of Peace, which is totally blasphemous. Destroying the NWO and taking the kingdom of Christ by force. No. Vengeance is mine, declares the Lord, and it is Christ that defeats his enemies, not you and your 7 mountain mandate. But in this chat room of 6,606 Freedom Force Battalion, it's going to be biblical. And on the 3rd day, again, this whole resurrection thing, these are absolutely insane. Evil won't be satisfied until they watch Donald Trump carry his cross with a crown of thorns on his head for all to see. Something to think about. Let me blow this up. Something to think about. Over 2,000 years ago, the Christians thought all was lost, but 3 days later, he rose again. Before he left the White House, Trump signed the National Sanctity of Human Life Day this Friday, January 22nd. 3 days later. Coincidence? I don't think so. Clarity's coming. Another one. The wicked laughed when they killed Jesus. They thought it was over and that they won. They were sorely mistaken. Again, this is all in reference to Trump. Trump landing in Palm Beach still has the light shining on him with this beam of light across his plane. I showed you tons of pictures where Trump is illuminated by the camera and people say that he's illuminated by the light. I got a couple more here for you, and then we're going to go into what the Jewish rabbis are saying, which I find extremely interesting. I'm still trying to find the actual documentation where Trump incited the violence. This all kind of feels like Pontius Pilate asking who should be freed. And the crowd just kept yelling Barabbas, even though there was nothing documented that Jesus did anything wrong. Again, comparing Trump to Jesus. Maybe this is a little like how the disciples felt on Good Friday. Or check these articles. This is from someone in the 7 Mountain Mandate, NAR. This was back in March 22nd, 2019. Donald Trump is the perfect shepherd for scared sheep. This is in reference to Matthew 26:31. Then Jesus said to them, "You will all fall away because of me this night, for it is written, I will strike the shepherd, and the sheep of the flock will be scattered." Here we have articles, January 14th, 2021. What will Trump's sheep do now that their shepherd has been put out to pasture? Again, paralleling, the shepherd has been struck and now the sheep are scattered. It is so blasphemous. It makes you want to cry. All right. So, moving on to probably this whole segment is incredibly important, but this subsection of the mimicry of Christ via Trump and this antichrist spirit, this is very, very interesting what the Jewish rabbis think and say. We see these extreme segments of the alphabet community, the NAR Christians, talking about the resurrection, the Trump. Even non-Christian patriots are talking about it, but they say more of his second coming, his comeback, but from not really a spiritual perspective. I think the New Agers are having very similar perspectives. But not only that, not only this whole resurrection thing, they've also compared him to Moses. So the Temple Institute, they haven't been really talking about Trump, but they've been doing this whole series during this tumultuous 2 weeks about let my people go and Moses and fleeing out of Egypt with the Israelites in the Red Sea. At the same time, the alphabet community were doing this. You see pictures of this where Trump is parting the Red Sea. Newsmax, which is one of Trump's loyal media outlets, Right Side Broadcasting, Newsmax, OAN. President Trump needs a Moses moment now. So again, and as we get into what the Jewish rabbis are saying, this man is commanding so much worldwide delusion. It seems like there has to be something more to this. It does, it's quite possible, and we'll get into this in the theory section. It's quite possible that maybe he's already completed his purpose. But it sort of doesn't feel like it. And I think that we just need to be on guard. That's all. Just be on guard, because as you see, the whole idolatry thing, and this is really even getting propagated more by the left. The more the left, because they own mainstream media and the television and all the social media, they are just slapping it on like gravy. They are gloating. They are full of glee. They're trying to purge all the people that are against them. They're calling them, all sorts of, I don't even say the words, saying all sorts of terrible things about them, to where people are trying to look for the only person who can lead them out of this. And it's still him. It's still Trump, even though he's out of the seat of the presidency. So I still very much worry about this delusion. Anyways, Jewish people, very important. I see that we're right above an hour, so this might be another 15 minutes, but so important. We've seen a lot of things happen with regards to the Abraham Accords. Trump doing things that people thought were really not possible. And again, as I showed you in another video, he's been planning this for 35 years. His face was on a coin next to King Cyrus, who helped rebuild the temple. And they think that Trump is going to help them rebuild the temple. Here's the Abraham Accords coin. I think that's what this is, by Donald Trump. Again, a lot of idolatry about Trump. I just brought the whole globe picture back because that was just weird. But just putting that back in everyone's memory to recollect it. But again, I want to show you a couple things. In secret recording, Trump associates compare him to the Jewish Messiah. Particularly, the head rabbi of Ukraine and some rabbis in Israel explained that according to Jewish numerology known as gematria, the letters in Trump's name add up to 424, which is the same total as Messiah. Okay, so maybe you've already sort of known this. These articles have been out there for a while. These aren't necessarily new. Is Donald Trump the Mashiach, Messiah? Here's another one on, this is back in 2016 though. He's always been portrayed as the Messiah. Rabbi predicts Trump will win and usher in second coming. I want to in this segment, what I want to show you is a lot of people may be aware of this. A lot of people may be aware that many Jews, especially the Chabad, I think I said that right, Chabad Lubavitchers, it's a segment of Orthodox Jews, I believe. A lot of people may already know that they see Trump as a Messiah. But what I think is most important, and what I want to show you in this segment, is Jews actually believe in two messiahs. And what they call those messiahs are Mashiach ben Yosef, Messiah of Joseph, and Mashiach ben David. And I want to show you that they actually believe that Trump is Mashiach ben Yosef, the first of two messiahs, a worldly messiah, and then a spiritual messiah who works in tandem with him comes afterwards. As I've shown you the parallelism of the NAR, the New Age, and the Christians, they're really paralleling Trump to Christ. The same thing is happening on the Jewish side, but according to their prophecies. And there is a stunning alignment between all these very different groups coming together and having thoughts that are very, very similar, all about one man. So, here's just some other things. Check out this video. This is the Chabad Lubavitch movement. This flag is called the Mashiach flag. It's a crown with the Hebrew word Mashiach. And again, this isn't just a couple rabbis saying this. Look at this celebration. I don't know when this was taken, but look at the celebration of Trump. You can see the Trump flag and the Mashiach, the Messiah flag. They are really heralding him as a Messiah because of all the quote-unquote good things he's done for Israel in terms of the Abrahamic Accords, in terms of moving the embassy to Jerusalem, etc., etc. So let's look into this a little bit, because this is so interesting. Jews believe in two messiahs. And this Jews for Judaism, they try to counter Christianity, because in Christianity we believe in one Messiah, Jesus Christ. But we believe that he came the first time in the flesh, and second time he will be glorified, and he's the Lion of Judah. What they believe is almost that exact same thing, but two different men. This is where the scripture says the veil of Moses lays over their eyes purposefully. They are so close to understanding the mystery, but so far. So just a little bit about, what they believe in these two messiahs. Again, the first one that comes is called Mashiach ben Yosef, Messiah Joseph. And what they call Mashiach ben Yosef, you can see it right here. This is Mashiach ben Yosef, and they call him the suffering Messiah. So see how close yet so far they are. Jesus was the suffering servant. He suffered many great things. They also believe the first Messiah is a suffering Messiah. So they see it in the scriptures, but they refuse to acknowledge Christ. It's incredibly sad. But again, they see Trump as Mashiach ben Yosef. They see everyone hating him. They see the deep state rivaling against him. They were hoping that he was going to win this second term. But all the punishment and the ridicule that's going against him, they still see him as their suffering Messiah. Mashiach ben Yosef, to the rabbis and to the Jews, the Chabad Lubavitchers, they see him they see the person in that role of Mashiach ben Yosef. It's a military and political leader who helps to restore Israel, rebuild the temple, and usher in, sort of like a John the Baptist type of thing, usher in the second Messiah, which is the spiritual Messiah. And you can see it, with their coins, the Sanhedrin coins and everything. That is literally what they see him as, Mashiach ben Yosef, a suffering servant. And again, everyone's saying, oh, poor Trump, all the suffering he's had to endure by the deep state. Now, I'm gonna, because actually I didn't put the picture in here, but my next video, I want to talk about biblical typology, because Joseph is actually an Old Testament typology of Jesus Christ. So they're actually looking at the story of Joseph, and they're saying that, our Messiah is going to come in, and there's essentially a typology with Joseph, but they just don't see it in Jesus. They refuse to see it in Jesus. So we'll actually look at the true typology of Joseph in another video. But I want to highlight this guy here, and just some of the things that he has to say, because I think really hearing it from the lips of, again, some of the Jews and some of the rabbis really, really drives this point home. In one video, this guy, again, whether you're talking about the Masons or the Anons or the New Agers or the NAR Christians, they're all talking about dark to light. He says that in this video. They all talk about the second Great Awakening, the thing that I've really been warning about, the thing that I think is tied to the Great Delusion. He cites this Rabbi Mendel Kessin lecture on July 9, 2020, that just as Moses is taking the Israelites out of bondage and into the promised land, Moshiach ben Yosef will come from America. He will have the soul of Shekinah and change the consciousness of the Jewish people, and then they will know who he is, Moshiach ben Yosef. Then the rebuilding of the temple will occur. I don't really believe in the whole third temple prophecy, just as a side note. And the beginning of redemption. The world will then know the Jews are the chosen people. And so he, as one of many Jews, believe that Trump is Moshiach ben Yosef. But let's look at this video, and I want to highlight a couple segments here, just so you can hear it yourself. Let me pull this up here. All right, take a look at this. We're just going to watch for just a couple seconds here.
Last 8 weeks, Donald Trump. Who is Donald John, son of Mary, Dan Yochanan ben Miriam? That's my Hebrew version of it. He is, in my opinion, an anointed servant of the living God of Israel. He is the American Moses, leading America out of dying DC deep state, in parentheses, Satan, Sitra, Achra swamp, Egypt, to the promised land of the final redemption. And in doing so, as Mashiach ben Yosef, he is also working together with Mashiach ben David, the Messiah, son of David, from the tribe of Judah. Ben Yosef is from the tribe of Ephraim, who some of our sages believe is here in the land of Israel now.
So what he said is that Trump, as Moshiach ben Yosef, is working together with Mashiach ben David, who is the spiritual Messiah, which, if we look at the parallel in truth in Scripture, is the Antichrist. He thinks that these two are working together, and the sages in Jerusalem believe that the Antichrist, or the Moshiach ben David, is in Israel right now, and Trump's working with him. The thing that really comes to mind when he said this, and again, I don't know if there's any truth to this, but I might as well share it, is, we looked at this article a while back where a very prominent retired Israeli general says that space aliens, again, the whole Galactic Federation, which is a New Age term, space aliens asked Trump not to expose the Galactic Federation, that Trump wanted to reveal them to the world, but they told him, no, you have to hold out because the world is in too much tumultuous times right now. It's not to say that we put any credit on this Israeli general, because again, we don't seek the wise of this world, but it is sort of strange about why this guy would be coming up with this theory that Trump wants to reveal this Galactic Federation. And here in what some of the sages and the rabbis are saying here in Jerusalem, that Mashiach ben Yosef and Mashiach ben David are working together. It's hard. Could be a coincidence, but it's hard to turn away from this and say it's nothing at all. But on the flip side too, though, the Jews have thought other people in history were messiahs as well, and they were wrong. I forget the name of the one. There's a very prominent rabbi who they thought was Messiah, and it just didn't pan out. So again, just have to be guarded. But let's listen to just 2 more segments of what he has to say, and then we'll conclude with a theory section here. 10 minutes and 39 seconds. Okay, listen here.
Child human sacrifice, possible, assuming God would accept it. What is going to happen to most of you at this point? Yet President Trump gave you every chance to not go into the Red Sea. Plague after the plagues, you went deeper and deeper in the last 4 years into evil and wickedness. Some of you are going to Guantanamo for life imprisonment. Others are going to the to the gallows for...
I'm not going to let him say that, but again, gallows and things like that. He's saying all the same things as the New Agers and the alphabet people and all this. And I mean, these are very different people, but they're all coming up with the same narrative. Thinking about unclean spirits and moving across the world, you wonder, is this leading somewhere? This is probably the worst part, and then I want to get into the whole various theories, and we'll end the broadcast there. This part's crazy.
President Trump will be joined by other Moseses and Abrahams and redeemers among the tribes, clans, and families of mankind worldwide to lead the final rebellion and overthrow of the kingdoms of darkness that the Satan, Lucifer, his fallen angels and demons have established for the last 6,000 years.
Let me pull up his quote here so you guys can see it. Trump will be joined by his followers to lead the final rebellion and overthrow the kingdoms of darkness. And 2 Thessalonians chapter 2 says, "Let no one deceive you in any way, for that day will not come unless the rebellion comes." Oh, that gives me chills. "And the man of lawlessness is revealed, the son of destruction." Oh, it's creepy. It is so creepy. Oh, I cannot believe we're living in this day and age. So yeah, there you go. There you go. Let's move on. Let's move on. Okay, I've talked about how Trump has been planning this whole peace deal for 35 years. That's the video. Trump has been planning this for 35 years if you want to go and watch that. But okay, let's get to the prevalent theories. And this is just where I want to show you all the different thought processes out there and just conclude with some dangers ahead. Oh, gee, this is going to be like an 1.5-hour video. But again, it's just too much. It's just too much. The main prevalent theories going on right now: the Great Reset, NWO1. We will enter into the beast system, and a totalitarian Antichrist rule is going to happen. I have been disagreeing with this for 9+ months. Scripture says that people will worship the beast. Scripture says that Satan is like an angel of light. This whole idea that the Antichrist forces everyone in the world, by totalitarian rule and putting them in camps, people of the world. There's definitely going to be that type of persecution to Christians which fight against that, spiritually speaking. But again, the world is going to favor this entity. So again, I know a lot of people believe this, but I've said my piece about it for 9 months. I strongly disagree that it's over and the Great Awakening is just completely fizzled. Another theory: Great Awakening is still happening with Trump and he will come back. I think it's plausible. There is an incredibly high chance for this major delusion. Again, when the Bible speaks in 2 Thessalonians that there's going to be a major delusion, people don't want to know the truth. God gives them over to something else that they do want. Not a whole bunch of people want to be forced into a vaccine. Not a whole bunch of people want to be forced into mass. No, again, we see rebellion sort of happening all over the world with protests and things. People don't want to be forced. Even the people in China, living under communist China, they all hate their government. I mean, they're just waiting for the right time to try to overthrow it. No one's enjoying it per se. They're all scared. They just don't, they're just tattletaling on each other because no one wants to get in trouble. No one likes it. Okay? So when the scripture talks about God gives them over to a delusion, he's giving them over to something that they want and something that they favor. And so again, looking at the momentum of Trump, looking at everything that's still happening with him, and everything that I've showed you, even though he quote unquote lost and people are still like in mass or even greater numbers supporting him, imagine, again, this is the thing I've always feared. Imagine if somehow God gives people over to delusion, and this is the delusion. All the NAR people, all the false prophets, they're going to have a heyday. And people are literally going to fall into immense delusion. That's at least what I see as like one of the top candidates. And that is very worrisome to me. That's what I've been warning about for about a year now. Very worrisome to me. So, again, I'm not going to do any dangling carrot, a year from now. It's going to be Trump. It's going to be Trump. Like, like so many people have done with Obama and things like that. But I think we should watch him still in the near term. This theory, the whole Trump, almost said it. The whole alphabet movement was a psyop. There's actually many partitions of this. There may be more than this. One is this whole thing was a psyop to pacify patriots. I disagree with that one. The country was way more pacified by being satisfied with the right-left paradigm. Trump just completely shook that up, and now everyone, like, fake news wasn't even a term until like Trump really started coming on the scene. Now people don't distrust the media. Even truthers didn't trust the media way before that. So again, saying that this was a whole thing to pacify people, I think the current paradigm was really pacifying people. So I disagree with that aspect of psyop. Psyop to mark patriots for destruction. I semi-agree, semi-disagree. In part because I think it's very myopic thinking. The whole MAGA movement is global. And again, it spans more than just patriots. And I've shared a lot of that with you in this video. That it's Jews, it's Jewish rabbis, it's New Agers, it's patriots, it's conservative. I mean, there's tons of different people from all different types of walks of life globally. And so to say this was just attacking the USA patriots, again, there is truth that now the conservatives are all being found out and pursued and purged and things like that. So there is truth to that. But I think as an overall theory, I'm sort of half and half with that. This was a psyop to create discord and split America so that the NWO can come into power. Again, sort of agree. We do see that discord and chaos is an agenda, that there's a battle between this Great Reset and Great Awakening, and it will cause chaos, as we see with like Freemasons and Jesuits and things, and the Phoenix rising out of the ashes. They desire order out of chaos. There has to be chaos first, and then the order comes. And it depends on what you think that New World Order is. Is it the totalitarian beast system that enslaves everyone and forces them to worship? Or is it the Luciferian golden age that people like Helena Blavatsky and other Luciferianists desired, where they topple the New World Order? Again, two different positions. However, some people pushing this theory say that America was standing in the way of the NWO, and now it needs to be taken out. Again, this goes back to that whole thing of the Constitution and America is a Christian nation, and we're the only thing standing in the way of the NWO agenda. It's something that was very prevalent with that one pastor that went viral with all his Dana Coverstone. That was one of his first dreams, that we are the only thing standing in the way of the New World Order agenda. I very much disagree with that. And then lastly, there's this thought by the New Age community, and it's not new. I've been told that this has been around for decades. But they say that the Great Awakening cannot come unless mass destruction comes first. So some of these New Agers are out there saying that the Great Reset must happen, a lot of people must perish, and then the Great Awakening will happen. I think that's possible as well. Again, I don't think we should really get into timings. But that's definitely, that theory sort of relates to some of the ones I spoke up here at the top. So, dangers ahead as we conclude this. Again, very long broadcast. It'll be an hour and a half. But again, use that for the people that are just chiming in or whatever. Use that the gear icon on the video and go to playback speed, and you can probably watch this at 2 times speed, and I can still be intelligible. Number 1, don't be quick to support apostate Christians simply because they're being persecuted. There's going to be a lot of people that face persecution and ridicule and maybe even get sued and things like that. And honestly, you wonder if it's judgment from God. So like this one, over 16,000 Christians want Franklin Graham fired for helping incite the Capitol riot. I don't think he helped incite it. But again, it looks like Christian persecution. And I think a lot of Christians are going to jump on saying, we need to help. We need to help him. Again, you need to be aware of who's getting quote unquote persecuted. Because a lot of these false prophets, a lot of the NAR Christians and people that support Catholicism and even Catholicism in general, that was one of the prevalent things in some of my other videos, was a lot of Catholic churches being targeted by the BLM. And so there was almost like people wanted to unify with Catholics because they are moral and BLM, Antifa type things are not. So let's help them out. We got to be very careful with that. 2, very important, don't let your flesh get aggravated based on the attacks and rhetoric from the left. Again, I don't have a horse in this race, but if I watch it and how they're gushing with glee, it even tempts my flesh. Just turn it off. Just some of these things that I have pictured here, just how it's almost comical. Out of all the singers, they chose people like Lady Gaga, and she wears this thing very similar. It's supposed to be a dove of peace, but again, people are mocking it as it's the Mockingjay from Hunger Games. The whole inaugural ceremony was just really throwing it in the face of all the supporters. The social media companies are in the bag, obviously, and they're going to be purging, and they're going to be censoring, and they're going to be doing all sorts of things against conservative values. There will be some aspects of Christianity that are targeted, like views on LGBT, but overall, the gospel itself isn't being purged yet. So, looking at how they're sort of covering it up, all these media giants, just take a look at this. One of the first press briefings by Secretary Jen Psaki, I don't know how you say the last name, at 3:11 p.m. It had 10,000 dislikes, and then YouTube went in later on that evening at 7:31 p.m., and then it's suddenly down to 3.1. So there's active manipulation, but that's nothing new. They're really carrying Bernie. Biden is totally weekend at Bernie's. They're just carrying him along, and so we'll see what happens with this whole Kamala thing. Things like this as well. CNN airs this guide to deprogram or re-education camps. We see a lot of these things. These things are going to infuriate people. Just let it. People are not going to agree with me on this. Some people think, we need to fight. Depends on what your definition of fighting is, but this is going to tempt your flesh. Stay away from it. Be careful also, not just of aligning with people that are apostate Christians like Franklin Graham, aligning with Catholics. Also be careful about running en masse to certain social media sites that promote free speech. This is just one example. I think things like I'm on MeWe. Again, a lot of my videos on politics. Hopefully this one doesn't get deleted. Actually, because I already have a warning against my channel. And so if another one's taken down, I have a strike, and then I can't post for like a week. I don't think I can do any live streams. So again, I appreciate your prayers that this particular video is protected with how much politics we spoke about. But this one, people are running. Oh, should we go to Parler? Should we go to Telegram? Should we go to Gab? This is just one example. I don't think they're all bad, but just be careful, because some of these are really hubs for a lot of this Great Awakening agenda. So Gab is total alphabet central. Okay, so this is the guy who founded it, Andrew Torba, and he has posted a lot of things like this. So this is the whole Keck alphabet mascot. This is their mascot. So he's supporting that, apparently. And from what I've seen, there's tons of those alphabet people all over Gab, and so you just got to be mindful that if you enter into some of these spaces, you don't want to be subliminally, am I saying that right? Influenced, just because the whole platform has been infiltrated. And again, still be on guard for this Great Awakening. A lot of people are asking what the whole PED thing, the whole PED exposure thing, where is that at? There's been some strange things with that. Just got 3 more pictures here for you. Talked about the schism, the potential schism coming within the Vatican. So again, now you see this war happening in the Vatican. Chicago Cardinal pushed back on Catholic bishop's statement warning Biden's agenda would advance moral evils. This was on January 21st, 2021. So again, you're going to see the Catholic Church, they've already started to split, but you're seeing Pope Francis aligning with these Rothschilds and Rockefellers and the whole deep state agenda. You're starting to have other people gravitate towards Trump. Again, Trump's their man still. And they're saying that Biden is a false Christian, Trump is a godly Christian, and, who knows what's going to happen there. But regarding the whole PED stuff, again, I just find this really interesting. This has not left the scene. This was actually reposted. So this was October 12th, 2020, but I'm starting to see this surface again under different context. Or maybe some additional information through this investigation. Horror app, Facebook hosted 94% of 69 million abuse images. This one's recent, though. Yesterday, January 20th, many of you are seeing this posted on social media today about Twitter. Twitter rejected pleas to remove this from platform because it didn't violate policies. So in stark contrast to Twitter's forceful policing of political content it deemed as hateful, a new lawsuit has accused the company of turning a blind eye to this type of content. So again, these are major viral articles, and it's still running this narrative of the deep state, which is Zuckerberg, Twitter, Vatican, blah blah blah. And they're all into all this Kabbalistic stuff. You still see this popping up. Now, is it just going to be tamped down, just like it has been throughout the last couple weeks, where, just based on election stuff, Trump tried to fight it and just got completely overrun by the powers of the deep state? Possibly. But again, this is all spiritual warfare. We are in a very tumultuous time. No one really knows. Like, I have a whole bunch of people in my fellowship, and we're all bouncing ideas off of each other just because, we're aware of the signs of the times, and we're just asking opinions. No one really knows what's going to happen, but everyone knows that we are in the thick of it. We are in the birth pains. And so don't take your eyes off Christ. Focus on Christ. Be in his scripture, be in his word, be in prayer. When you're compelled to fast, fast. Make sure that you're edifying the body of Christ by using your gifts. Make sure that you are evangelizing to others so that the fullness of the Gentiles may come in and you're a witness to Christ. Not just with your salvation of your testimony, but in the testimony of how God has worked in your life. Those are the things that we should be focused on because time is exceedingly short. And while it's good to know the signs of the times and be aware of our surroundings, which is also could be a component of our witnessing, I know people that actually watched my Great Awakening Exposed video after the fallout from the inauguration, and some I've heard from friends that some Q and oh man, I said it, now this whole thing's going to go down. Some people from the alphabet community actually came to their senses and realized it was idolatry. So praise God, these things can be a witness. But we're still seeing this battlefront go on, and we just need to make sure we don't take our eyes off of Christ, and we realize that lots of stuff can happen. So this was a very long-winded video, but again, full of tons of information. I'm at 1 hour and 34 minutes. I think this is the longest video I have ever done, but I hope you found it beneficial. Things are getting intense. And so I pray the peace of our Lord over you all, and that he covers you in grace in this period of time. I also ask for your prayers, especially over this video, because I think it is that important that it not get taken down. Also, my channel doesn't get taken down. Again, all of the politic types of Sign of the Times videos are going to go to Rumble. All of them are going to Rumble. So please either bookmark the site, or if you have a little bit of spare time, go ahead and create an account and subscribe, because I will start to be uploading things there. And then I will see you in the next video, which again, we'll get back to ministry, and we'll look at typology of Joseph as a type of Christ. And maybe we even talk a little bit more about this Moshiach ben Yosef, and just show how close the Jews are to understanding the truth of the Bible, yet are so far. It's very sad. So this is Mike with On Point Preparedness. God bless. I hope you enjoyed this. Have a good weekend.